Brian, in your day job and some of the challenges you're running into, have you heard some of those themes spoken about today?
I would say the one thing that comes across is everybody's focus on the fact that the marketplace is changing and that the days of selling labor, selling input, selling FTEs are waning. These are going away. And I think the realization by both the buy and the sell side of the market is there has to be specialization because the buyer has to be buying something of value. And I think the challenge in the market is identifying what is that value, and then how do you, on the sell side, how do you generate that value? What investments are needed? What capital is needed? And on the buy side, how do you evaluate it? How do you make a decision that this is actually something you want to buy? So I think that theme of specialization and starting to really get to the bottom of the value of the relationship between a buyer and a seller is a theme that came across from a number of the discussions today.
How do you identify the value? Is it frankly still FTE based, or are there new models that you're applying?
Absolutely no more FTE based. We are all about sustainability and corporate social responsibility. For us, our green environments is very important. In terms of corporate social responsibility, in terms of employee retention, we want to make sure that we give them the right caliber to do their job on a global basis. For example, I do travel a lot, but I am based out of New York here. And for me, without these remote collaborative tools, I really can't do my job correctly. So we leverage on that for the FTEs and then become like our families of the different houses.
How do you, as you're engaging your partners, they're doing what they do, what are your key things you're looking after in terms of the relationship?
Absolutely. So we're always looking after innovative mindset. But as I said before, we're also looking after sustainability. Going green, having your green certificates is very important for our culture and our DNA of all the houses across. Kering has what we call environmental P&L. So if your company is suitable to us, the first thing we actually look at, amongst many things actually, but the first main thing is how sustainable are you? Because for us, the trend is towards sustainability to raise that right awareness across. At the same time, we want to look for fairness in terms of corporate social responsibility, so making sure all of our suppliers attain to those types of standards. And of course, we're always looking for having the right skill set and talent retention. So we don't want suppliers to have, staff augmented on a continuous basis. We want someone to stay and stay for the length of the project.
Peter and Gustavo, when you hear the term sustainability and sourcing, how do you interpret it?
From my standpoint as an analyst, and what I'm picking up in the marketplace is very much what Sangita that you enunciated just now. More and more organizations are placing sustainability, corporate social responsibility, impact jobs, impact employment very much at the forefront of their decisions in terms of what suppliers they're going to be looking at. This is really resonating for me, given the fact that we're at an inflection point, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of how procurement's going to be done. There is a much greater emphasis now by the corporate world, by businesses. And I think that Rita made this point very, very well, that we're starting to see the medium and smaller businesses really picking this up too, looking at elements such as sustainability as part of their procurement model. There's no turning back on this, I might add too. We are very much beyond the idea about your mess for less. We're very much beyond the fact that we're just looking for cheap labor and we'll shift all those workstations whenever we need to and we can find a cheaper model. Now it's all about not just the quality, but it's also about the quality of the delivery and the elements of the delivery that go into it, like the environment, like helping local communities, like making sure that diversity and equity and inclusion are cornerstones of what a supplier is able to bring to the table.
Oh, it's very confusing to give an answer.
I agree.
Because we're going to be more eco-friendly, more social responsible, have more governance. And that's great. I mean, we should have started many, many years ago. But how I see it in terms of outsourcing, nearshoring, and things like that is that Europe is very concerned. Big corporations, global corporations, US is very concerned. But on the other hand, what I see behind the curtains is that we're bringing back factories to the US, but robots only work there. They hire 20 engineers, 20 gardeners, 2 cooks. So labor is changing a lot. Most of the new factory workers in America needs to have master's degree. So, and on the other hand, you cross to Manhattan and you see all these homeless people. And that's why it's very complex. I mean, corporations are doing what they can, but geopolitics, automation, is playing a very challenging moment. So I think it's great that big corporations are taking the lead on these issues because these matter. The corporation needs to make great awareness in society and then in politics. And I think it's great they're doing that because we're living in a crazy world between technology and all the changes in politics. I think it's great that we have a starting point to start a discussion.
Just about any business will be happy to show you a seal of approval. And we've done this, so you can give us the green light. But what third party do you trust? Because otherwise, you can't trust the vendor just saying that, can you?
No, there's actual green certificates that one can actually attain. But
specific to global service.
Specifically, correct. But kind of bringing this back to even our brands, we are getting so sustainable to the fact where we are buying our farms. Our raw materials are coming from our farms. We want to make sure that fairness, sustainability is not just something we look for, but something that we also do. Mm-hmm. So on that aspect, it's a 360 degree. And I'm glad that you asked that question because a lot of our suppliers come to us and say, how do I get green? And what I tell them is there's so many other third parties that can make you green, help you become green. Maybe you're already green, but you don't have the certificate to prove that you're green. And for big corporations like ours, we definitely look for that, seal of approval. And in the sense, for example, Kering is part of what we call a fashion pact. We are the most sustainable luxury company in the world. And because of that, we take a lot of pride in asking all of our suppliers for that seal of green approval.
I love what Sangita just said in terms of we're entering a new era of compliance, in my opinion, Kirk. Do you remember for many, many years, it was all about, are you COPC certified? Are you ISO certified? Are you PCI certified? Now we're getting to an era of compliance where it's not just around information security and data protection, but it's going to be around ESG. It's going to be around environmental compliance. And I think that we have to recognize that there are multiple third parties out there that can provide these audits, that can be able to provide these benchmarks and can be able to provide these certifications. And we should also, I think, be looking, and by the way, I'm by no means any expert in this, but I have heard enough from one of our common friends, Alistair Niederer, who you will remember seeing in Atlanta just about a month ago talking about this, the extent to which we're going to be seeing new organizations providing these types of certifications emerging, credible organizations, and evolving in terms of how the whole idea about ESG evolves as well, and taking into account new developments, new components of ESG, and really, I think, holding the feet to the fire of the suppliers out there, because this is what not just the buy side is going to be looking for, but what their consumers are going to be looking for too.
ESG is starting to become a much bigger factor in our clients, buy-side clients' evaluations of looking at solutions. And I think on the service provider side of the market, I've seen a lot of activity of companies paying attention to understanding what they're supposed to be doing and how to articulate the policies that they're following and put in place policies that are relevant. So yes, I think it is a trend.
We heard from CXOs talking about how there's a much greater comfort with captives, driving captive strategy. How did you interpret that, Gustavo?
When we started our company 15 years ago, we started doing staffing to the U.S., and our largest clients were Indian companies setting shop in Mexico to deliver services to the U.S. And I was looking some pictures 10 years, Nexus 2014, and you can see how the booths evolve. It's how the industry has evolved also in this year. So And that's time the conversation is, can you do projects in Latin America? And then it evolved and got more sophisticated. I think I was analyzing during the day some facts about what's really going on in the industry, and I think there are different layers. First, we have the three amigos, Mexico, Canada, and the US, that are in a very different league. If you analyze trade, import, export, foreign direct investment, it's a league on their own. It's a unique league. It's like the Champions League of business. And then we have a lot of really good contenders. Many of countries represented today, and they're doing an amazing job. Colombia increased 80% their foreign direct investment. They're doing an amazing thing. And I think there's plenty of business for all Latin America to grow. When we're talking about FTEs and how they're deployed, I think labor arbitrage is still there. So that's why I think it's a double standard. Like, we care about value, but if you're not the cheapest, you're not in play. So value, Latin America is still not perceived by value in technology terms. It's getting there. That's why I'm glad that Mexico is part of the three amigos, because we're there. We're part of that equation. And I think that's a challenge that the rest of the countries that are not within this combination are going to have very difficulties when technologies keep advancing, automation, AI, voice recognition, and things like that. Is going to be a very big challenge for all of us, but especially for those countries that are not part of this cluster. Because friendshoring is real. Mm. Because Mexico now is the largest trading partner with the U.S. They might say because we have Cancun or I don't know, we have 35 million Mexicans here, or you can say whatever you want. But if U.S. is mad with China and Russia, and we're neighbors, we're cousins. So, but not all countries in Latin America can argue the same. And so that's a challenge I'm seeing in 10 years from now, in Nexus 2034. Now the game is not like 10 years ago, this country is better than this is cheaper. Technology is there, like I was talking with Fabiano, like the wolf is in the house. If it's already in the kitchen, in the room, technology is there and geopolitics is there. And if we don't take action very, very fast, in 5 years, it's going to be a completely different game.
So I think Gustavo brought up the point about friendshoring. And this is something that, in my opinion, we're probably heading into some fairly unstable times geopolitically. There's a lot of uncertainty about how certain alliances are being formed right now, certain blocks that seem to be emerging. And I'll just give an example. Kirk, you're very familiar with what's going on in South Africa right now. There's a new government that's coming in. They have not been perhaps the most aggressive in terms of the Ukraine situation, and they've been trying to straddle both sides of the fence. And I have a friend of mine who runs a BPO in Durban, and he had clients who'd come down from the United States, and he said the visual was terrible for him as a business person, an independent operator and supplier in Durban, South Africa, when the South African and Russian navies were running joint military exercises off the coast. And, you know, when you think about exactly what Gustavo was coming down around in terms of the three amigos and friendly countries and the willingness to try and procure from friendly countries, to an extent, this is, in my view, in terms of what we're picking up, this is definitely a thing. If things become more and more polarized and things become potentially further unstable, it could become even more of a thing moving forward.
I'll ask Brian and Sangita, in your worlds, where does that resonate on these geopolitical questions?
For us, geopolitical definitely affects consumer behavior. So it's a direct effect for us. Consumer behavior affects our revenues. Less disposable income, less revenues for us. I don't get my bonus. Great. But at the same time, in terms of geopolitical, we have a compliance team fully dedicated to that because laws, bylaws, all of that, by country, even by state in the U.S., California, I can't even keep up with the laws. So, they're changing on a normal basis. In terms of value, though, I must say I have been in a lot of high-profile, you can say, or project RFPs. And prior to even taking on this role, and during the conversations, the best, most cost-effective vendor is not the one that was awarded. The one that delivered the right value, the one that gave us, going back to sustainability, the sustainable concepts, that also resonated with our corporate DNA, which is very different, and who also had agility in terms of cross-cultural conversations, was awarded. So yes, we definitely look at value as one of the biggest things.
This industry is still growing. It's an emerging. AI will find its place. It'll do different things. But the concern I have sometimes is it's cast a pall in some ways, where some governments or political people don't know much about this industry start thinking, oh my God, let's just put the brakes on promoting this country because our call center industry is going to be wiped out. So there's massive oversimplification of the issue. I don't know. How do you guys see that?
It is true that there's been a huge amount of hype around this technology. This hype cycle has been the worst I've ever seen in my time working in BPO. I've not seen any governments yet take the view that we need to stop promoting outsourcing or we need to stop promoting CX as an industry because of the fact that these jobs just aren't going to exist. But I also will say that there is a great deal of uncertainty. There's a great uncertainty around what the expectations are about how this technology is going to play out. I think we're very much in a wait-and-see mode. The reality is that there's a huge amount of talent in the Nearshore. It doesn't matter if it's the Caribbean, Central America, South America, and there's a growing amount of talent that wants to work in international business, it's a win-win situation for everybody. I think going back to the panel I chaired earlier on, the best advice I could give anyone is to look to how AI can augment the roles and not replace them, because I think that we're a heck of a long way from mass levels of unemployment that's being driven by AI.
It's obviously a huge opportunity, but the risks and the challenges for Latin America are very important. Since successful BPO companies or basic IT companies that don't embrace AI and really understand how to change their business model are going to be, first, they're not going to grow, and then they're going to probably die because this is a game changer. We're part of our business unit is rolling out chatbots, conversational AI. We've implemented at least for 5 banks in Mexico, and we see that what does to the call centers. Last year, our solution answered 25 billion customers. So that was completely automated. I don't know how many positions that impacted the call centers from the bank. Well, I know, but I cannot say. So it's scary. It's scary. So if we're talking about U.S. has all the money to make the investments, I think more startups in this area of U.S., in Texas, in California are going to start creating more solutions to eradicate BPOs and automate tasks. And it's really challenging for countries that rely on low labor cost or not sophisticated. So if Latin America doesn't start investing and creating basic solutions, the good news is that all of you can go with Google or Amazon or Microsoft or whatever, just buy $100 of cloud and start doing proof of concept. It's not that hard. You can start something small. But if you don't do it, it's going to be probably the end of your business in the midterm.
And Sangita, what would you be advising your vendor partners to be thinking about?
So, of course, technology is great. AI is a trend. But at the same time, we should never lose a human form. We really believe in having a vulnerable voice on the table. So for us, of course, you heard from me, sustainability, but also keep in mind your corporate social responsibilities.